This time I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for Monday, May 24th, 2021. This evening on your agenda, you will note that there's a little difference in the order of the agenda. It's on purpose. It was not a mistake. We're doing the beer board first tonight, and that will be the order of business till we find out that that's not a good idea. But we've had people on the beer coming for their beer license and the opportunity to sell beer in the city, having sat through 2 hours of board meetings for about 3 minutes of hearings on their issues. So that's the reason for the change. So at this time, I'll ask the city recorder to call the roll.
Yes, Mayor Noes.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Blanks.
Here.
Alderperson Amacher.
Here.
Barry.
Here.
Blackwell. Here. Dunn.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. This time I'll ask Reverend Martin Nuther to offer the invocation to lead us in the pledge of allegiance. You stand.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance and your wisdom tonight. Give us ears to hear, hearts to understand, mouths to speak, and hands to serve. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. With that, are there, at this time, in our normal proceedings, we ask for any public comments. So is there anyone here who is from the public who would care to address the board tonight? Hear none, we'll please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
For the beer board, correct?
For the beer board.
Oh, beer board.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the summary of the beer board agenda items tonight. There's only one thing. There's really nothing to be resolved here tonight. We have the consent agenda, and that's the only thing that we have. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Approved by Blackwell, seconded by Dunn. Any comments? Well, green for approval and red for no. The consent agenda passes 7-0. There is no other old business. There's no other new business, so we will now adjourn the beer board. That is why we put the beer board at the beginning of the agenda. So the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will now come to order. We've already called the meeting to order, Ms. Blank. So at this time, are there any commendations and certificates that needed to be presented at this time? Ms. Moody, you have anything tonight? Very good. As far as proclamations and awards, let me first let you be aware of a couple of proclamations that I made last week without reading the full text of those proclamations. We made a proclamation in memory of a crossing guard that we had down at Farrah School for over 10 years. That crossing guard was Mr. Glenn B.I. Staples. He was a crossing guard for the city of Tullahoma's police department. We made that proclamation at the school last Thursday and presented it to his family, particularly to his granddaughter, who was in attendance. The family got a copy of the proclamation along with the school and the church that he attended. So that was a proclamation that was handled last week. Also last week, we made a proclamation to our Public Works Department. It was National Public Works Week, and we made this proclamation down at the Public Works Department to the Public Works Director, Mr. Butch, and he presented that. We presented that to him, Mr. Taylor, and he has that proudly displayed there. So be aware of those two proclamations that have been made. Another proclamation that allowed me to read tonight. This proclamation is actually a proclamation from the governor. It's a proclamation regarding Juneteenth Day. It's a proclamation by the governor. Whereas on June 19th in 1865 in Galveston, Texas, enslaved men and women received word of General Order Number 3 proclaiming to the people of Texas that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States that all slaves are free. And whereas the African American men and women of Texas were kept in bondage for over 2 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation went into effect and had not yet been granted their God-given freedom, and whereas churches and faith communities began hosting Juneteenth celebrations to commemorate freedom from African Americans for African Americans who had been enslaved, and whereas Tennessee was the first state among the states who seceded from the Union during the Civil War to end slavery by prior law and the final ratification of the 13th Amendment, and whereas Juneteenth provides us with an opportunity to account and remember that freedom has not always extended to every life in America. And whereas Juneteenth celebrations across Tennessee save to commemorate as end to enslavement and honor the heritage and memory of those kept from freedom for so long. And whereas every day is an opportunity to strive to more fully realize the ideals of our nation and ensure that the promise of free and just society is granted for every Tennessean. And whereas we humbly recognize each and every human being is made in the image of God. So now, therefore, I, Bill Lee, Governor of the state of Tennessee, do hereby proclaim June 19th as June 19th Day in Tennessee and encourage all citizens to join me in this worthy observance. Signed, Bill Lee, Governor. So, okay, I believe that completes all the proclamations that we have for tonight. So at this time, we'll entertain comments from citizens. And I know that tonight we are looking for candidates for the TAEDC board, and if there are candidates who wish to be considered tonight for that board, this would be an appropriate time for them to come forward and make any statement that they would care to make to the board. So at this time, I'll open it up to any of those candidates who want to be considered for the TAEDC board. Don't worry about being first. Somebody has to.
Yeah, figure I might as well. My name's Steve May, Mayor, Alderman, Jennifer, neighbor, Tom, Winston. I know a lot of people in the room. Don't know everybody, but I appreciate the opportunity to get up and speak just a minute. You know, I've got a lot of experience in, recruiting business and industry, retail to Lynchburg. I was the director of marketing operations at Jack Daniels for 15 and a half years. I worked there 18 years, retired at the end of March, kind of looking for something to do. According to Winston, he's trying to put me back to work. But actually, the board, being on that board, appealed to me because of my experience recruiting companies to an area that they wouldn't ordinarily look at. Lynchburg is the smallest town in the world with a Harley-Davidson dealer. I recruited them in there, worked with corporate in Milwaukee, brought their executive team down to Lynchburg, showed them the little town. At the time when they came, we had 13 empty storefronts on the town. I was property manager over 33 buildings in Lynchburg at the time, and we filled all those buildings with high-quality retail tenants that produced quite a significant amount of tax revenues for the county. As you know, Lynchburg is a very small town. They need tourism. I'm very familiar with how important tourism is to the state of Tennessee. Prior to my employment with Jack Daniels, I worked for Boeing Aircraft. I was the director of supply chain management for the Delta 2 and 4 and Atlas programs in Trinity, Alabama. Very familiar with the aerospace industry, which Tullahoma has a fair amount of that. Prior to that, I was with General Electric. I was the director of materials management for them. I ran the largest refrigerator plant in the world there in Decatur, Alabama. So got a bit of experience in industry. I know a thing or two about industry and and how important economic development is. The Boeing plant was almost $1.5 billion startup, greenfield startup, and I was the helped build it. General Electric, we did a $400 million startup. I know how to recruit industry. I know what industry's looking for in a town. Tullahoma has everything we need. We just don't have those people, those industries, those retailers. We should be comparing ourselves against towns of our size. We should be looking inward and figuring out why we don't have, the Belks and the Marshalls and the things that I know Tom works every day to recruit in here. They may not look at us because they see. I was pulling some numbers off the internet a while ago. To them, we look like we've got 19,852 people in here as of 2019. Instead of looking at Winchester with 8,700, Franklin County 42,000, Coffee County's got 56,000, Bedford County's got 49,000. We're a region, and we should be looked at that way. We should have bigger employers here. We've got a lot of vacancies that need filling, and I'm a resident. I've been in this area 18 years. I served on the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years. I'm very familiar with what Tullahoma is all about. I've lived here for 6 years, and I just want to see it do better. And I think I've got the skills. I bring a wealth of knowledge to that board, and I think that's what you need. You need somebody that's got some fire in the gut and wants to make things better. I just see tons of stuff every day that, I walk all over the place. I don't know if any of you have ever seen me, but usually got my head down, but I try to do a 3 to 5 days a week. I try to do 3 to 5 miles, and just got a lot of things I want to see happen here. I don't know about y'all, but I want my town to look better, be better, fulfill its potential, and we've got Toyota and Mazda going to Madison, Alabama. I lived in Madison. When I first moved to Madison, it was 5,000 people. Everybody said it's nothing but cornfields and cotton fields. You'll never recruit anybody in there. It's 56,000 people today from 1987 when I first moved there. And they have every single retailer in the world wanting to come in there. They just can't find a place to go. Okay? I have developed many of my own personal. I'm an investor. I've owned property in Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee, and Texas. And I constantly look for retail and vacation rentals to buy and sell. So I do a lot of stuff myself. I'm fully capitalized. I can do about whatever size project I want to. And I know that business really, really well. I know what retailers are looking for because I ran a $22 million retail enterprise in Lynchburg, Tennessee. Nobody thought we could ever get past $5 million. We went to 22. I know a thing or two about that. So I'm not bragging. I just know stuff. And when you've learned work for the world-class companies, you work around geniuses all the time, and a lot of that rubbed off on me. I'm not one, but I can tell you that. Anybody who works around me knows that. But I have worked around a lot of really smart people. And, I have a master's degree in management, and I can put that to work. So hope y'all give me a shot at it. That's all I got to say. Anybody got any questions?
Thank you, Mr. May. You've done an excellent presentation, so thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, who would like to go next?
Hello, Mayor and Aldermen. My name is Andrew Rice. I'm the Vice President of CFC Recycling, and I would also like to put my name in the hat for this job. I've had 10 plus years of business ownership, small business that's grown from 5 employees to now we're over 65 employees in Coffee County. We have dealt with trying to deal with zoning, to deal with growing in infrastructure, things like this. I've worked in obviously the recycling industry, but also the storage, transportation, green industry, and the waste industry. So I've dealt with a lot of commodity-based businesses that are the foundation of a lot of those bigger businesses. So I understand a larger economic scope in what those types of green industries are looking for. And I think I can bring the knowledge and the people that I know into that circumstance. I'm currently the Vice President of the Tennessee Scrap Recyclers Association. I've been that for 5 years. I am currently on the committee for the Young Executives for ISRI, which is the industry for scrap recycling industries. I'm part of the Go Green Committee. I am the chairperson of the Staff Parish Relationships Committee at First United Methodist Church here in town. I have graduated from the Coffee County Leadership Program, and I am a graduate of the University of Tennessee Haslam Business School. So I would appreciate your thought in my ability to put on and be a part of the Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Appreciate your time. And who would care to go next?
If those two guys need anybody to carry their luggage, that's the reason that I'm here. My name's Robin Judici, and I wanted to read, I put my thoughts on paper tonight because I normally don't do that, but I wanted to. I'm very interested in helping Tullahoma move forward, especially economically. I'm a business owner here, own and operate the Grand Lux Inn at 212 East Lincoln in the historic district. Have been here for less than 2 years, so or a little bit over 2 years. I'm the new kid on the block, but it took me 6 months to figure out I wanted to own a business in Tullahoma, and so I put my money where my mouth is and bought one. I think I bring a set of fresh eyes and fresh ideas to a city that has a unique opportunity right now to reinvent itself, so to speak. Because economically, Nashville is pressing, Huntsville is pressing, Chattanooga is pressing, and if you look at it geographically, we are in the eye of that storm, and we are going to either benefit or be a victim of the residue and the growth that comes with all of that. I've spent my entire adult life creating and helping with turnarounds, opening clean sheet businesses, understanding how important it is to build a quality economic base for the citizens in the community in both Nashville and Miami, Florida. I know how important it is to put people in a situation where they can be successful and equip them with the tools necessary to pursue their dreams. I've served on advisory boards for colleges, local chambers, Rotary clubs, foundations, and helped find the first teen court in the state of Tennessee. I understand fiscal responsibility, how to balance a budget. I also understand that all growth is not good growth, and the way we've done things is generally a response. The way we've always done things is generally a response you'll get from people who are currently failing. I understand how important brand awareness is and how it will help a city like Tullahoma parlay its identity into assets. I came to Tullahoma with the idea of slowing down and enjoying life. Since then, I've found a number of people and causes that I find both compelling and in need. Motlow State, the Friends of Jefferson Park, the downtown, and those who simply need a meal or a place to stay. They've all garnered my attention. We've established a lot of local connections and have made great friends here in Tullahoma. My wife is part of the senior management team at Ascend. She serves as the company's chief legal officer, and we just love this town. I've always subscribed to George Bernard Shaw's philosophy. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends upon the unreasonable man. For us to succeed, for us to achieve what we want to achieve as a city, as a community, as a county, we've got to be unreasonable. We've got to think outside the box. We've got to look at things through a different lens. We've got to see things that we won't see come to fruition. We've got to understand that what we leave for our kids and our grandchildren, all those that come behind us, we may not see it happen. But we've got to understand industrial parks and zoning. We've got to understand the necessity of an impact fee, the necessity of quality growth versus just numbers. Because at the end of the day, all you end up with is a mess. And it's a mess that somebody else has got to try to clean up. And today, you're the ones who are cleaning up the mess. And so I just want to help. That's all I want to do. I have no political ambition whatsoever. The last place you will ever see me is where you're currently sitting tonight. I just want to help this little town of 20,000 people become what it does have the possibility to be. As Steve said earlier, it can be whatever it wants to be, but it's up to me and it's up to you. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Gadisi. Appreciate your time. Is there anyone else? If there's no one else who'd like to speak, let me make you aware that I did receive a letter from a candidate who was unable to attend the meeting. He's out of town tonight, so he asked me to read a letter that he submitted, and I told him I could do that. This letter is from J.T. Northcutt. Honorable Mayor and City Board, this letter is to express my desire to be considered to fill the vacancy on the Economic Development Committee. I'm interested in participating as a committee member because I believe in the mission of the committee. Its continual success is vital to our city, the residents of Tullahoma, and its surrounding communities. I believe that developing city government business processes and infrastructure that promotes continual economic development, business growth, and sustainment is essential for our residents to have a vibrant job market and employment opportunities. It is also essential to help ensure our city maintains a tax base that enables it to perform the essential operations and provides the optimum services to our businesses and our residents. I served as a Tullahoma Alderman for 9 years, 3 terms, and a former Tullahoma business owner. Additionally, I have a 30-year career in extensive knowledge in performance management process development and assessment of business management systems. So I feel my experience should be beneficial and attributes to the community. I'd be honored to be considered respectively J.T. Northcutt. With that, I'll also make you aware that there's one other candidate who could not be here tonight, Jamie Northcutt. She was
Moorhead.
Excuse me, I'm reading from the wrong time. I'm reading from the wrong list. Janie Moorhead submitted an application as well, but was unable to attend tonight, but did not submit a letter to be read. So those are the candidates that we will be considering, and as a business, under new business later in the agenda, we'll be voting on those candidates. So with that, we'll now open the floor to comments from the citizens. Now, if you were going to make comments earlier, we had beer board comments, but these are comments from the citizens for this board. So you're welcome to come forward at this time.
Please state your name and address.
Say my name and what?
Address.
Address, Christy Elmacher. My business is 115 Northwest Atlantic Street.
Thank you.
And it's so funny that I'm following up with these guys. So, so let me begin by saying thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you tonight, as what I would like to share with you is of great concern to me and deserves ample discussion and consideration from y'all. I too am going to read from my notes. I can get long-winded, off track, so I'm just going to try to make this straightforward. I know we don't have a whole lot of time tonight. I can let you stay here for a long time. So a little history about me. I've been a small business owner in Tullahoma for the last 12 years. I have been paying local property taxes attempting to collect sales tax to benefit this area by keeping Coffee County residents interested in shopping locally, bringing business to our area rather than out of town. At this time, I'm seeking assistance from the City Board and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in an effort to address these issues brought forth tonight and hopefully to find solutions to these issues. In 2015, I relocated my business from the mall. The roof continued to leak, ruining my inventory, and all the while, the owners of the Northgate Mall refused the remedy of my damaged roof and damaged inventory. So in 2015, I moved, and that's when my troubles began with City of Tullahoma. Within the last few weeks, the fire chief has been frequently my business and continually requesting inspections. The state was called in twice. I had a complaint filed. I requested those complaints, and those complaints you could find in any building in Tullahoma. I'll just say that. So the state came in and reviewed my building and didn't see any fire code deficiencies. There were some deficiencies on the electrical, and I'm taking care of that. But specifically, they were wanting to turn me into a mall. I addressed this to them when they contacted me, and I said, I've already had this happen to me in 2017. They were like, well, we don't have any record of it. And I said, I've had the state in. They didn't classify me as a mall. When I talked to the fire chief on May 16th, I believe it was, I called him and I said, what is going on? This has come out of the blue. I have been in business for 6 years in this building. No incidences, no complaints, nothing. And all of a sudden, you want to come in my building and start telling me that I don't have a certificate of occupancy, telling me that I don't have all these things. And then he's like, Christy, just trust me. Just trust me. Let me get the state in. He'll hopefully give the jurisdiction back to us, and I'll take care of you. This is on a Thursday. I was like, because I was very upset, and he was trying to calm me down. I said, I'm sick and tired of being harassed by the codes department. There's a lot of small businesses in this town that gets harassed by the codes department. And a lot of it is very unnecessary. So he's trying to calm me down. And he says, tell you what, Christy, I'll take care of you. I'll have you buy some fire alarm pools. And he said a couple other things. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh yeah, buy it from your company, which is a huge conflict of interest, which I have already purchased all my fire extinguishers, pay them yearly to manage my fire extinguishers. And now they're wanting me to buy more things. Well, if I was classified as a mall, I would have had to been sprinkled. Well, they tried that into 2017. The state came in again, and he looked at me, he looked at my plans, he looked at my drawings, my architectural drawings that I paid a lot of money for, and he's like, so they went back and reviewed it, talked to their boss, and they came back and said, you do not classify as a mall. And it has been determined by the state that I met all our fire requirements, and I am not a covered mall. And I have the reports to show y'all. I have the reports to show you the complaints and who filed the complaints. And the harassment I have received by the city administration, codes, and the complaint filed by the local authorities to the state, as well as temporary shutdown required and mandated last week do nothing but hinder and the very objectives that this board and city should be here to promote. Successful entrepreneurship, small business, and shop local. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's why I invested my money and my time in Tullahoma City. I could have gone somewhere else, but I chose here. I also have provided, I bought a building that sat empty for 7 years. And I brought a lot of businesses in to that building, which, here again, brings in taxpayer money. But I keep on being harassed by certain people in the codes department. And come to find out, I have some litigation going on with the mall. And come to find out, there has been some meetings with those people. And they've been bragging about it. And if you need anything with that, I can provide that information for you. So, and they've been discussing my business without me even knowing. In addition to all this, right before all this happened, I had spoken with the finance director of Tullahoma City to purchase an adjoining building to my current location and remodel it. However, after making the inquiry for this loan, I have had over 15 fire inspectors, codes enforcement officers, state fire marshals, and other government officials to visit my place of business. And I just think that is just too coincidental. And also, all of this has stemmed from a small business owner that has moved from the mall and has taken a place in my downtown avenues. The question I want to ask is, who is running this city? Is it Joe Lester? Is it David Crabtree? Is it Jennifer Moody? Or is it mayor and aldermans? These city officials that are discussing my business matters with third parties without my permission is wrong. And I want to thank y'all for your time tonight. And if y'all have any questions, I can print out whatever you need. I can print out emails, I can print out my reports, whatever y'all need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allmark. Are there any other comments from citizens?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask that you email those documents.
Do it now.
I would like to ask that you email
Sure.
what you have.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have one comment to make. So obviously, I don't want it to seem conflictual. We do have the same last name, but I do want to thank Miss Christy Allmacher and her husband for bringing such a novel idea and promoting the entrepreneurship that they have done in the businesses. There's some people here that are with them that are in their building, and these are the types of people. Not just because she's family. These are the types of ideas. These are the entrepreneurs that we need to be supporting and make sure that we are not just encouraging people to shop local, but also we're encouraging that small business be attracted to Tullahoma.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, we'll have, at this point,
Can I speak 1 second, please?
please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Thank you all. My name is Scott McCain. I'm the owner of For the Wind Cigar Shop and Lounge, and I am one of the tenants in Christie's building. Just a couple of things that to what some of the gentlemen that are running for the new position, some of the things that I would like to request as we go forward for small businesses is that I've been in business for about 2 years, and one of the things that we've asked for is a checklist. So when a new business comes in and meets with the planning codes, we sit down on the Wednesday afternoon meetings. We would come to them and ask that we want to open up our business. We provide them with the details, drawings, everything that's necessary. In return, we would like to have a checklist. So I'm trying to speak as all small business owners. So I think that would eliminate a lot of the problems that we would ever have, because there are things as a new person that comes in here and wants to start up a business, we don't know what is required to us. You know, that's not our forte. So I would ask that some type of a packet, a checklist be available to any new small business that comes in. We are faced with a situation right now that's very difficult for all of us. You know, we're the heartbeat of this town, the small businesses. We're trying to make things happen just like all of you are, and we're faced in a very, very difficult time right now that with COVID, trying to come out of this. Many of us are fortunate enough to come through it. I was blessed with good customers that supported me, but we just ask for your support. We ask for the direction of this new group that's going to happen. Look at us. Let us be part. Develop a small business committee that we can sit in so that we can have a voice that's being heard. I think it's important, instead of just laying it strictly on our governing bodies, we need a governing body for ourselves as a small business so that our voice can be heard. So we make sure that things are done right and being done, one, as a benefit to us, and two, as a benefit for the city, because we all have one common goal, is to bring people here. We've got 600,000 people that come to Jack Daniel's annually. Why can't we get these people to come here? Why can't we get these people to come here and stay? We've got to develop. We're in our downtown area, talks about the arts and entertainment, district, and I just feel like there's many times that we are handcuffed. So we need your support. We need you as our governing body to listen to us and help us grow, and let us know what we're doing right from wrong, because many of us are, if you want to say, we're uneducated on what's necessary from us from a planning and codes perspective. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments from citizens? If not, we'll move into the,
I need to comment, Mayor, because my name was mentioned.
yes, you're entitled to
I'll
that.
speak from the fire department side first. The first time recently that I was in the Avenues building, I was requested to attend an inspection that was being performed by the codes department. Normally, our fire marshal, Nick Kimbrough, would have attended, but he was in school in Nashville getting some further education. So I went with the building inspector. And we were looking at a small room inside the structure that was a facial type place. Little one room, one way in and out, little simple thing. The lady was there to meet us. She was very nice. We looked at it. It looked reasonable to me. Also looked reasonable to the building inspector. By the way, the building inspector is new to this area. He came to us recently. So we walked out of the building. As we were walking out, we noticed a few things. We spoke with Christy wasn't there that day, so we spoke with the lady that was with us, and we removed an extension cord, rolled it up, set it in the floor because it was a fire hazard. We also asked them to move some stuff out from in front of the fire extinguishers that were blocking and to check an exit sign, and we left. When we got out on the sidewalk, he and I both discussed a CO for this building, a certificate of occupancy. And neither one of us at that time really felt comfortable doing a certificate of occupancy unless we kind of figured out what this building actually was. This building started in 2015, and it got a temporary CO for a small dress shop. And since then, it has not had another CO as far as I know. Now, my fire marshal was Richard Steiner, and he worked hand in hand with the codes department for those 6 years. When he left and Nick was not available, that's why I went. I am the actual authority having jurisdiction in Tullahoma. So we agreed, EMAD, the inspector, and I agreed that, well, this little room is not going to cause much trouble. So we left. Well, then it came up about a sandwich shop that is going to open. Well, I was brought back into the picture because this all happened in like the last 2 weeks. So we went back. Well, when we went in the building, we noticed that one of the businesses had relocated. And there hadn't been any permits pulled. I don't know what construction had been done. I don't know if there was electrical or anything. So that kind of escalated the concern a little bit. We noticed some things that didn't meet the code, obvious things. Some wooden structures that had been built in a C1 district that's not fire rated, and some of these things that are just a little questionable. So I didn't feel comfortable without first letting the state fire marshal evaluate it, and if they determined that it was in our power to control it, then we would help Ms. Almacher make it where she can move on. So we asked the state fire marshal to come in and take a safety review of it and look it over. 2 fire marshals came and looked at it. Ms. Almacher met us. She took us through most of the building, upstairs, downstairs, down the hallways. We looked at the alarm system. And when we got through with that meeting, we came back to City Hall. We all met right here and talked about what do you think? The fire marshals were like, well, we really need to get some higher ups here to look at this because we've got some concerns. So at that point, my hands are tied. I can't do anything unless the fire marshal tells me. So a few days later, we schedule a visit. We are told that the owner of the building is not allowing us to come. No local people are allowed. Now, quite honestly, I can go in that building anytime I want to, but I honored her request because we're just trying to work through this problem and find a solution. So the fire marshals, 4 of them, went and visited with her, walked throughout the whole building, made some notes, came back, we sat down here again. The comment from the lead fire marshal was, well, it's not a covered mall because it can't be. Because a covered mall has certain restrictions that this building doesn't meet. It's not sprinklered. It doesn't have a 60-foot clearance all the way around it. It doesn't have the wide enough aisleways to be considered a covered mall. So we're like, but if you read what a covered mall is, it's multiple businesses opening up into area, having a single entrance and exit. So they're like, well, we're not going to call it a covered mall. We're going to call it a mercantile. And let us go back and we'll try to work through some of this stuff, but it's looking like it's going to be y'all's. We're like, okay. I mean, if they do that, we'll be glad to get with her. We've got some ideas of some things that can make it safer, and we can all live with it. We asked for a meeting with Ms. Almacher. She came in the building at the codes department. Her and her husband sat down. We were going to talk about options and how we could work with this. She asked, what do you want from me? Or what do you want from me? And Ms. Moody asked her, I hate to quote you, but she said, can we just get a drawing of what the building is right now? And she said, well, I already gave that to you. You had that since 15 or 16. But a lot has changed. And we asked for just a current drawing. She immediately stood up, told us we'd have to talk to Flossie Davis, and told us his phone number. So that's where we're at. I was expecting the fire marshal to give me a letter saying it's turned back over to you and us get with Ms. Almacher and work through this and move forward. On a personal note, my wife's company has nothing to do with this. Any business in Tullahoma can use any company they want to. Obviously, I don't show favoritism, or I would have been super nice and tried to skirt the law because she uses my wife's company. And they don't sell fire alarms. We're certainly not trying to force her to buy something from anybody. We want to help her stay in business and be safe. I don't want anybody to get hurt, especially my firefighters and citizens. And I don't want her to get sued and lose everything she's got because she has no CO. So that's what I have. If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your comments. At this time, we're going to move to reports from our members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Ms. Blackwell, we'll start with you this evening.
Wasn't expecting that. Okay, give me a second then to pull it up. All right, so since our last meeting, I met with Dr. Stevens regarding the National Eating Disorder Association's body project that we are working to hopefully get started within our community. Again, it's a body positivity workshop for 11th grade girls. I will be meeting with the school counselors this week to see what to address whether there's a need for it within our 11th grade girls. So I'm really excited about that, to be honest. I'm glad that it's now after school's out, so I feel like we can actually move things forward a little bit more. We had a planning commission meeting that was very actually quick, I feel like, this last planning commission meeting. And right after that, we of course went to that stormwater meeting, which I want to thank Mr. Taylor for putting that together, Ms. Moody for putting that together, and Mr. Patterson for doing that. It was very informative. I'm looking forward to when the next one happens. A school board meeting was the next day. That was a very informative meeting. Lots of great information that we found. I want to specifically talk about the virtual school that they will be starting next year with the high schoolers. And I'm going to try to get the information fully correct as best as possible, because I do think it's something that our community will benefit from. We received a grant. I think someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's a $750,000 grant to put this together. Is that correct? Okay. The virtual high school is going to be at the high school level, and there's really two types, where you will be either with the TVA Tullahoma Virtual Academy or through the Tullahoma City Schools THS. They plan to offer it both ways so that some people can do more of their learning online. Some people can actually go into the school and do what's kind of like a +1 or a flex, where they'll have a schedule where most of it's at school, some of it's at home. The applying for the virtual school is essential, and it is due June 1st, because they need to know how many people are going to be there. So they were trying to cap it. I think they said at 50 people. So they're taking applications now. One thing I was going to say about this that I think is really good and amazing about it is, I honestly, in hearing what Dr. English proposed, it is something where if you are wanting to take electives that you wouldn't be able to fit into your schedule normally, which was a problem I had in high school. So I was really nerdy, and so I could have taken CAD. I wish I could have taken CAD. I used CAD in my work life, but I never got that in high school, and now they can. So I think this is going to be a fantastic program. I can't wait to see what it looks like, and that we're piloting it here. So that's one of the big things I wanted to talk about. They also celebrated a lot of retirements that day, which were sad, and congratulations to those who retired. Other things, thank you to Public Works. I sent an email to Ms. Moody about something at Terra Estates, and they took care of it very quickly. I had a couple of Community Council for Diversity and Inclusion meetings, which are, what most importantly is that what we're looking at doing is putting together a forum for, because there is a lot of racial inequity in terms of the COVID vaccine and who's getting them. So we're working with Vanderbilt. Thank you, Sir Novia, for giving me the contact there with their Office of Equity to try to put together a forum here in our community. The Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team meetings are this week. I'm also meeting with Pam Bussell because I have an idea of trying to work with our faith leaders around, stopping domestic violence before it starts. We're actually trying to break the cycle of violence. Other things, we went to Splash Island. Just want to say thank you to our Parks and Rec department for that. It was a fantastic day. We were there on Saturday. It was busy, and it was full, and the lifeguards were at work and working so hard that they measured my daughter 10 times before they let her down the slide. So she is short. So thank you to them for that. I had a Tullahoma Daycare Center board meeting, and I want to make sure this is out there. My Coffee and Conversations will be June 8th. Next one at Celtic Cup from 9:10, sorry about the weird time, to 10:30. And then this fall, I will be doing it once a week on Wednesdays from 8:15 to 9:40 or 9:45 on Wednesdays, so at Celtic Cup. So also a big thank you and congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce on quite a few successful events this past couple weeks. So that is it.
Thank you. Alderman Dunn.
Sir, so this next Saturday, June 5th at 6 o'clock, Go Green is having a movie night. South Jackson is hosting with us. I'm really excited about it. So it's going to be on the lawn at South Jackson. So bring your blankets and your lawn chairs, and we're going to be watching Re-Greening the Desert. So it's a very powerful video about just how you can, correct things that have gone wrong with erosion and stormwater control, and just some remarkable things with that. It should be really cool. We're going to have giveaways. We'll be doing some composter giveaways, rain barrel giveaways, door prizes, all sorts of fun stuff. It should be really fun. So, and the other, one more announcement with that is that same night, Horseplay, which is a wonderful nonprofit here in town, they are looking for more volunteers. So they're doing a volunteer orientation. So if you know anybody who thinks they can commit to 1 hour a week for 8 weeks, it is a remarkable program. I was very, very glad to be able to have participated in it whenever I was in high school, and it's a powerful program. And I also spent this last Saturday with Miss Cernovia at the You've Been Crowned event, and it was just wonderful. It was very, very nice. So thank you very much for hosting.
Do you have to be okay touching horses?
Alderman Longmarker.
Okay, I wasn't expecting to go next. All right. So to start off with, my apologies for missing the Tourism Council meeting that happened last Thursday. So I'll give an update at the next meeting on. I'll get with Winston on that one. But I have actually been in Myrtle Beach for the past 3 days and just rushed back here just so I could be here for tonight's meeting. Visited the airport over the past couple of weeks. Got to see some skydivers jump out of some planes. Still haven't quite worked up my courage to do that, but great job at the airport for everything going on out there. It looks beautiful, and our building out there is just magnificent. I just love it there. The conference rooms, everything is just beautiful. So went to the stormwater training with TDEC, with Mr. Jim Patterson, who hosted that. Had some concerns, about definitely things that are coming down the pipeline, wanting to make sure that we, the city, are doing what we need to do. We have a lot of stormwater issues in Tullahoma. I know that the rest of this board, we get calls every rain event. So definitely want to continue to look at ways to improve that in our capital projects and things like that. But also, we have to balance these regulatory initiatives with the costs on the business owners. And so that was something that kept coming up, is why can't we mandate this, or why can't we enact this? So continue to, encourage that we create common sense solutions that we're considering those business owners and those developers in, but also our water quality. I've had a few emails and a few phone calls while I was on vacation about, I promised I would mention this, but I haven't even had a chance to look at it myself, about a new mural that we have in downtown, but it's not on a city building. However, I know Jennifer has reached out to me over the past couple of weeks about, do you support painting a mural, like she's asked all of us, in the downtown? And I'm a little conflicted on this, especially since the new one that was just put up, I've had several phone calls that say that there are some correlations and significance, that it has an underlying symbolic meaning to some satanic and demonic things that they're concerned about. Now, whether or not that's true, but here's the thing, it's not about whether or not it's true, it's about the subjectivity and is it offensive. And so I think that it's a valid thing that we need to be concerned, especially if the city is considering putting up murals in downtown. We need to make sure that we're not doing any murals that are going to be offensive to our citizens. Also had a concern from a citizen about the crosswalk on West Lincoln Street. So just want to mention that I know school's out, but hopefully, Rupa, I kind of wanted to say this out loud to you and the board, since you're our school board liaison, is the crosswalk at West Lincoln, where you come across like by King's Cross Church, that there was somebody witnessed an accident from children crossing there on a few days ago after school, and that's not generally where we have. We don't have any crossing guards there because it's middle school, and we tend to focus our crossing guards. But since that West Lincoln Street intersection is such a busy intersection, I know we're struggling with getting crossing guards now, but that's something that we need to consider, is how to make that intersection safer for our children crossing to and from the Bel Air community to go to the middle school, since a lot of kids do walk to the middle school. Now, here's where I want to thank Mr. Giudice, I'm sorry, I don't mean to butcher your name. The unreasonable man. I think I wear that crown proudly a lot of days. And so it's not that I'm trying to be unreasonable, but I did run as the conservative candidate, and that means I will be your biggest proponent for, number one, small business, entrepreneurship, and a limited government. I do take great issue with anybody from our administration to our fire department saying, I can go in your building anytime I want to. We are still bound by the Constitution of the United States and the Fourth Amendment, and you are still a state actor. Now, whether or not that is true, we need to act gracefully and make sure that we are, let's remember that the more regulations, the more costs we put on these businesses, those costs get put on the consumers, and then prices go up, and that intake, creates inflation, and then the cost of living in Tullahoma goes up. So all of this has a trickle-down effect from everything we as a board do to everything our city administration does. And so, again, I want to just be a proponent. I am pro-fire, and I am pro-business, and I am pro-wanting to make sure everything is safe. But we need to create a climate of respect for these small business owners and be a proponent of, common sense resolutions. And so hopefully we can, work with our small businesses and continue to be a supporter of them. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
Mr. Mayor, I am respectful of everybody's time, so I'm going to keep it short. I wasn't going to make any comments, but I will make one. The mural that is on the wall went up on the Masonic Lodge, and it's the all-seeing eye that is on the back of every single dollar bill. So if somebody does think that's a satanic,
Throw out that dollar.
send it my way.
We'll take it.
I will take that dollar. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Berry. Appreciate it.
I'll be short as well. I attended the Housing Authority meeting, and we actually met, and they went over their 5-year plan meeting for the Housing Authority, and I was able to meet and talk to a couple of residents throughout the Tullahoma Housing Authority, which I enjoy doing. And then we had the meeting. Tullahoma Housing Authority, they are still like 98% occupancy, so they're doing very well. I did attend the proclamation for the crossing guard that you mentioned earlier, and that was Mr. Glenn B.I. Staples at Fair Elementary School. And also attended the storm water draining meeting, which I must say I learned a lot, especially the part about the ponds at the Walmarts. I thought that was just part of the architect. I didn't know that it really had a function. So I thought that was really interesting, and I shared that with my grandkids, and they loved it also. And then on a personal note, I want to thank Alderman Dunn for attending. I hosted a banquet called You've Been Crowned, and I've started a group on Facebook because there's so much negativity on Facebook, but I try to use it in a positive light. And so You've Been Crowned actually turns a year today, but we celebrated Saturday. And You've Been Crowned is just to encourage, uplift, and empower all women of all races, because we just don't do that enough. There's enough division in this world as it is, and I think it's time for us to come together because, as it was mentioned earlier, Public Works Week, we're stronger together, so I think that's what's needed right now.
Thank
And
you,
that's all,
Alderman.
Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Blanks.
Mayor, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I will be brief as well. I've had a TUA study session meeting last week, very informative, going over the budget. Duck River meeting, our water is great. Drink it up. Water your yard. Also went to the storm water quality meeting. It was informative. Shop Tullahoma. I'm done.
All right, what a record. Thank you, Alderman. Appreciate all that you do.
You're welcome.
I did attend the Planning Commission meeting last Monday night, one of our board meetings. Stormwater training as well, went very well. Also had the opportunity to participate in a welcoming to our community for the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars. They had their national commander in Tullahoma, and for a dinner and an award ceremony there, I had the opportunity to speak with them. Quite interesting event. The horseplay opportunity that you mentioned was they had a little get-together last Saturday night down at South Jackson Civic Center, and the entertainment went from about 7 o'clock till after I left. I don't know how long they went, but it was quite lengthy, and it was quite good. So I expect everything going on at South Jackson today, these days seem to be very, very good. Also, we attended the Women Impacting Our Community last week, since our last meeting. So that was my activities for the evening. As far as, let me say this about my observation about our codes, and this is my observation. We're doing, codes people are doing things to protect business owners, to help business owners, to make sure that their investments are safe. So my opinion is that so long as our codes people are enforcing codes equitably, without favor in any way, and doing it justly, everyone will be better for it. So I think our codes department will do well, and if they can do that, and I'm sure that they will. And with that, we'll turn to our report from our city attorney, Mr. Worsham.
Thank you. As you know, we're continuing to work on the collection of the delinquent property taxes. We collected about $25,000 last month. And we're doing that about every month. We're working toward the delinquent property tax sale later on this year. So we're doing a lot of title searching and things like that, tracing down people, having summons re-served because in many cases they were not served properly, or they weren't served at all during COVID because of the postal authorities' reluctance to have direct contact with people. In addition to that, we're working with the codes department on some property that needs to be cleaned up. We have 2 properties in mind that are the subject of numerous violations and also delinquent property taxes. We want to work with the property owners. In one case, the property owners have evidence the desire to simply deed their property to the city in consideration of our waiving the fines and the penalties and things like that that have been assessed against that property. In another, we have a property owner that we would like to discuss exchanging her property for some other property next door in order to add to some city property that we already have. And we need authorization from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen relative to these properties, one on South Maples, no, not South Maple, both of them in South Tullahoma, 2 different locations in South Tullahoma, to begin negotiations with these people, not binding negotiations, but discussion toward resolving these issues without having to go all the way through the tax code violations all the way through the courts relative to these properties, which will save us a lot of money and a lot of time. So if the board would authorize us, Ms. Moody and the legal department, to begin negotiations with these people, I would appreciate your considering making a motion and approving that so that we can begin to move forward. We're waiting for a title search on one of the properties. One of them we've already had a title search conducted, and the title is clear. We suspect the other one will be as well, and then we can move forward with that.
Mr. Worsham, are you looking for a motion?
Yes, I am, sir.
To that extent tonight, I'll entertain such a motion.
Move to motion to move forward.
Motion by Alderman Blackwell, second by Mayor Pro Tem Blanks. Discussion on that? No discussion, we'll vote on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Can we say what we're voting on one more time?
Would you please state your request?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I heard this correctly.
Yes, we're asking for a motion to allow us to begin negotiations with the 2 respective property owners relative to these 2 properties toward an end of acquiring them in a manner that will save us both the time and the expense of going through litigation.
Sorry about
This is
that.
only to enter into negotiations. Anything would be coming back to this board for approval. Okay? Cast your vote. Your motion is approved 7-0.
Thank you. And we're working on some other routine things beyond that. But recall that any time that my office is open to talk with you all about any matters in which we're dealing, without any problems whatsoever. Just call me anytime you need to. I'll be happy to address those.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Noes, a point of personal privilege, we are an hour and a half in, no, since we've been here for 2 hours.
We're well
We have to use the
hydrated.
restroom.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Can we maybe do the consent agenda first and then come back for, never mind.
My purse, though. Okay.
Well, it might have been a little me too.
Just a little bit. Just very little.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I just need to wash that sweetness down.
Thank you, everyone, for returning from their 5-minute break. At this time, we will hear our report from our city administrator, Smoody.
Yes, I have a few items to report. One, I wanted to share with you, I've approved an emergency purchase of a new plastics baler for recycling. One of our balers has been down for some time, and we've had to pull one that's typically for cardboard to try to do plastics. It doesn't work very well to do that, and at this time we're just simply overwhelmed with materials. Balers have about a 12-week lead time for delivery, and we're also, when we did reach out for 3 quotes, we were told that if we waited till after July 1, there was going to be a 4.5% cost increase. So for those reasons, to expedite the purchase, we still looked for competitive pricing, but I'd like to go ahead and get it ordered now before much more delay so we can get it delivered quickly. I also just echo congratulations to our city school system and Director of Virtual Learning on their grant, that $750,000 to initiate what I think will be a really innovative new program for our community. Also attended the Women Impacting the Community Luncheon with Mayor Noes, and really was awed. Beverly Lee serves on our Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation board. She was the keynote speaker and talked about technologies of the future, and just did a wonderful job weaving in all of her different experiences, but kind of guiding us from the past into what we can expect in the future. Very wonderful event. Also to share with you, this past weekend, as you know, Parks and Recreation, we opened Splash Island. We averaged about 500 attendees a day, so we've already had just around 1,500 people back at the pool. So I know they're enjoying that since we had such a short season last year. And I also attended with Tom Robinson our Coffee County Joint Economic Development Committee meeting. That is an initiative really part of our 3-star certification. It encourages all Manchester, Tullahoma, and Coffee County to work together strategically on economic development. And we've been meeting more regularly, and I really enjoy the content of those meetings. So I just wanted to share with you that that is becoming an active group again. And then I know you'll be excited to hear, I got a call late today that some representatives of TDOT are going to be in Manchester tomorrow. And so I'm going to go in person and meet with them and talk about our Wilson Avenue widening project and try to get them, schedule with them for them to come back and be able to meet with this board. So I'll work on that tomorrow. Also, importantly, I know there's been a lot of interest in this. On tonight's agenda, item 2178, I'm going to ask that you remove that item from the agenda. Unexpectedly today, the candidate called to withdraw, and there are very personal reasons I've shared with all of you. But in light of that and kind of the short notice, at this time, I have spoken with JP Kraft. We have a qualified, strong individual in-house, and he's agreed to step in that or continue serving in the interim director role.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment or a request to make of you, since I'm directing this at you. I think that since I would like to encourage Ms. Moody, since we do have a qualified interim who is also one of the candidates, and we have no further candidates, that we leave that on the agenda and she make that nomination tonight. But that is completely up to you to direct that, but it is on the agenda, and I do feel like a long-term interim is not good for our city.
Ms. Moody has requested that the item be withdrawn from the agenda tonight. It will be withdrawn. You may continue.
The only other thing, obviously addressing the public comments tonight, some of the information that was shared, I'm learning or hearing for the first time. What I would just say is that a lot of times I am put in the situation. I've often called my position like a conduit or a conductor almost, because I have to be responsive to our citizens, to this board, to my employees, and I'm always trying to find the middle ground. I think most often when there's these type of conflicts, there's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides, and not, I think there's things that have occurred and that the codes people are aware of. And there's obviously more to the story from Ms. Almacher's side. So I don't feel appropriately prepared to respond, but just to say that I echo the things that you've said tonight, that we certainly want to make sure that businesses feel supported, and that we do things in a tactful way, that we are a resource to small businesses, that we're used as a tool to make sure that they're safe and compliant, and we can always do better, keep working. So I'm going to, after this meeting, hopefully continue to reach out and work with Ms. Almacher and get through this. Okay. So that's my report tonight.
Thank you very much. We'll move into the consent agenda, and I'll remind you that all matters under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen requests that they be removed, and in that case, they'll be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. During that portion of the meeting reserved for comments from citizens, as shown on the agenda, citizens may request that the board remove an item from the consent agenda or that discussion to be held on that item. On the consent agenda, we have about 7 items tonight. I'll read the caption. Number 1 is the consent is for the public hearing and regular meeting that's item number 2170. 2171 is set a public hearing for June 14th, 2021 on a request to rezone 109 and 115 West Vine Street from low density residential from R1 to general commercial district C2. Item number 2172 is to set a public hearing for June 14th on a request to rezone 609 Cornish Street from medium-density residential R2 to general commercial district C2. 2173 is to set a public hearing for June 14th on a request to rezone 407 North College Street from medium-density residential R2 to high-density residential district R3. Item 2174, we will announce a vacancy on the Tullahoma. Tonight we're announcing a vacancy on the Tullahoma Airport Authority on that board, and a vacancy on the Duck River Utility Commission. Item 2175 is to approve a vehicle purchase of a cargo van in the amount of $25,552.81, which is below the state contract price from Russell Barnett Ford for the use in the programming and concessions by the Tullahoma Parks and Rec Department. Item number 2176, approve a 5% local share grant match in the amount of $17,087 for a TDOT construction grant to support the North Taxi Lane Rehabilitation Project, Phase 3 at Tullahoma Municipal Airport. That's the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Approved by Blackwell, seconded by Dunn. I'll vote fake green for red for no. The consent agenda is approved. Under old business, this is a resolution I've been hoping to get before this board for about 6 years. resolution to amend the private act charter of the city of Tullahoma to change municipal election code and to extend the terms of office from 3 years to 4 years for mayor and aldermen to align with the August general election cycle. If you reviewed your packet on page 56, starting there, you will find all the details, all the language that's in that. Is in that modification to our city charter. So I'd like to get a motion on the floor.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Barry,
Second.
seconded by Dunn. Any discussion on that?
Yes, I have some questions. So this says for the mayor and aldermen, but it does not mention the school board. And the problem is, here's my, I guess, what I'm concerned about. The school board elections, are they also set by the charter?
No.
No.
No, okay. So where are we at in that?
They're working, the school board is working to get their cycle adjusted to our cycle as well. They cannot get it done this year, so there will be an election this year for the school board, but by the time 2024 rolls around, or at least by the time 2023 rolls around, they'll have their cycle changed as well.
So I have a motion to amend this resolution because if the school board is going to have an election, I think we should still have an alderman election as well, since we're already going to pay for.
I can comment to that. We have to enact the resolution exactly as it's written because it's been approved by the governor. If we don't enact it exactly as it's written, then we just can act it.
Well, I'd like to
not change our charter.
Okay, so my motion is to postpone the enactment until after the election.
I do believe we have a time limit on enacting it here. It takes a two-thirds majority of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to approve it, or it will not become law. And I cannot remember how much time we have in order to do that. Ms. Moody, do you happen to know that somehow or another? I believe it's 60 days.
It's not in the text itself.
No, I realize that.
My motion to postpone is.
I think we could propose this maybe till the next meeting, and then we'd know what our time limit was on that, if that'd be appropriate.
Alderman Walker has requested a motion to postpone. Is there a second?
To the next meeting, is that correct, Ms. Almacher?
Yes, we
Right, to the
can
next-
we can talk about it at the next meeting. If we're going to
Wait
go.
just a moment.
Yes.
You made a motion to postpone this election until next.
I would like to make a motion to postpone the vote on this resolution until the next meeting, until we know whether or not we can push this out. If we are going to, the point is, if we are going to have an election for the school board, we should also have an election for the aldermen who are up this term.
I think at this point, we need to have a second, or we can't have discussion
We can't
without a
have
second.
discussion.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? There being no second, the motion will fail.
Can we move into discussion? I think we have a motion and a second for the original. Can we move into a quick discussion?
You can move into you can move into discussion on the motion that's on the floor.
Okay, great. The only thing I was going to say, I plan on supporting this. I said it to the Tullahoma News when they asked me, but I'm going to say it here. I just really encourage our community to stay engaged, even in off-year elections. Like, call us, text us, don't just harass us during the years when we're being elected. I want them to know what's going on all the time. And that was my biggest fear, my concern with this. It's the fiscally responsible thing to do. Absolutely. I just really, really highly encourage our community to stay engaged, to remember that these are nonpartisan elections, and that they will hopefully, please continue to reach out to us, not just on election years.
Any further discussion?
One thing that we need to look at is we also elect a city judge every 7 years.
Oh.
Is that right? So do we need to adjust that, or will that fall?
We will. The feedback that I've received on that is that there is actually a conflict with the state constitution that limits our ability to change his, extend his term in order to move him off the cycle he's on. And so one of the alternative ways for us to address it is to see if we'd like to change him from an elected to an appointed judge, which is possible. He does not hear general sessions cases. There's no requirement that he be an elected judge.
When is his next election?
I want to say 2025 or something like that. It's further out. I can't remember.
Oh, he was on with you. So
I
he's
do know it falls
2024.
on an odd
So
year.
will this all be for naught? I don't
No, it'll still move hours, but instead of us just keeping and kicking the can and then having to go through it all over again,
Now we know what our next steps are.
we know what our next steps are. We can make our moves. The school board's going behind it and getting it. And
Attorney Worsham, you have a comment?
Yes, I believe we have some time to do that, but our general sessions judge does have general sessions court jurisdiction. He doesn't exercise it, but he does have it in our charter. So we'll need to look at that, but his election's not coming up for 2 or 3 years, so we will have time to look at that to see what we can do in order to accommodate our desire that the elections be held at the appropriate time for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the school board, and either have an appointed judge or an elected judge, if we can do that. And so we will do that in plenty of time.
2025.
2025, okay, we've got plenty of time.
Any
Thank you.
further discussion? Call the question.
Steve, I have a question for, do you feel like that, is this the 7-year cycle? Is that something that's statewide or other cities?
It's 8 years, it's statewide.
And it's
Our
all-
charter reflects some of the state law, but we have some particularities in ours that are different, and we'll study that and make sure that we do it in plenty of time as done.
Okay, I will remind you that for the charter change, it has to be a majority vote. It has to be at least 5 votes to approve. So I'll call the question.
Do you have a second on the call to
still
question?
have-
Yeah.
I'm not feeling as comfortable as I
Yeah.
was, honestly. I know you need a 5-7.
5-2. Yeah.
Sorry, 5 out of 2, excuse me, or 5 out of 7.
Just seems like we're not where we need to be with all of the ducks in a row. That's how I feel.
We're getting there.
well, the school still has another year to do theirs, right? I'm assuming it has to go through the same process ours did.
I'm going to make a motion on the floor to postpone this, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. Till when, when's our next meeting, Sue? I'm sorry, or Jennifer? June 14th, until June 14th.
To come up with more information?
Yes, please. I want to know, I just want to be able to find out more about this 8-year cycle, whether we can. Yes, sir?
We have a motion on the floor
Oh, I
now. We cannot make another motion to postpone it again. It's already failed one time. So
Now, another person should be able to make the motion.
people that voted in the positive, the ones that can only
We
bring
didn't
it
have a
back
vote
up.
on it. We just didn't
Did
have
you
a
not have
second.
a vote on that?
We didn't get a
Not have
second.
All right, okay, then I'm sorry. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
So a motion by John, seconded by
Almacher.
Postpone until
Till
June
next.
14th?
So that I'm clear, this won't put us in a
Pickle.
time pickles. And what we're voting on tonight has nothing to do with the judge or the school. It's just our election, correct?
But I don't want to go through a hot mess if it's not going to make any hill of beans of difference.
I don't
In
think
terms
it's
of
gonna
saving
make-
money, it does not. We'll have the same expense because we have a
We're going
municipal
to the
election.
same
Right,
expense.
but
So
we-
For
therefore-
the school
Well,
board.
If we don't approve this, it'll have to go back to the state legislature
Yes.
and get approvement again.
If the
We
We'll have
don't-
to
we don't-
restart, yeah.
We don't usually bring stuff to our state representative
Yeah.
and also our state senator, and they go through that process, and it's long and drawn out, unless it looks like it has, pretty good support of our board.
May I?
Will they
Let me finish, and I'll let somebody else talk. So, they'll carry probably pretty much whatever, but if we fail to pass this after we've encouraged them to do that, then our clout with them down the road may be tainted a little bit. So you need to think about that. This has been a long road and process to try to get this approved. I would hate for the wheels to fall off here in the last little bit. If we go ahead and have an alderman race, you know, petitions are due, and you can't grab a petition, and, you know, it's, you know.
I think I was next, Mr. Mayor, may I? So I do think it's a little unfair for you. I mean, obviously, you're up this year. And so obviously, you're not going to want to have to go through the trouble of having an aldermanic race. However, if we're having a school board race, and it's not going to cost any more, to take that vote away from the people is just simply unjust to me, and it's antithetical to our Constitution. However, I don't, you know, those elected officials that you're talking about, they'll continue to have conversations with us and a relationship with us, because if the school board is going to have their election and they're also going to pass this, it's not going to go into effect until the next time anyways. We have another year to get this done too. They're going to have to get it passed. We could send it back. Also, those people are elected as well. They're going to want to continue to have talks with us and be on have a good relationship with the cities that they represent. So I say you're taking a vote away from the people that you already are going to have anyways because of the school board, and it would be antithetical to our Constitution of the United States to pass this tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Just a moment. We got Alderman Barry.
there are 5 of us on this board who we had these discussions and asked our state senator and state representative to carry this bill for us. And we had these discussions. Would be the only thing that I would say is 5 of us sitting here. They didn't just do it on their own. We asked them to take the time when they had other bills or other things that they could have been doing to carry our bill, and to go to the governor and to go to their committees and to go and get these things pushed for us.
I represent the citizens, not the government.
We've got,
Yes, sir. I've been in support of this. I know you raised this point the very first night I was in office, so this has been since 2017. So I know this has taken a long time, and I think it's the idea that it'll be, you know, we'll just be able to do it again next year. I'm not so sure about that, but I do know that the main reason why I'm supporting this is for financial, you know, just we don't want to be wasting money in Tullahoma. But if I'm very opposed to having an appointed judge position. I don't agree with that in any way. I think that's something that does need to be elected. And if we've got ourselves in a mess where we can't, you know, somehow or another, he's been elected on the year 2017, and so the next year it's going to be 2025. It's never going to be on the same year as leap year and presidential elections or the Olympics or any of that. So if we're still going to have all that, I don't know.
Well, we'll still save, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll still save how many
It's still only every
elections?
8 years instead of an every year election.
Right, every 8 years
Yeah.
instead of every year. So, I mean.
And
if-
that's
if-
what we
if-
thought we would deal with the judge last. We would
yeah,
deal with
if
the
it-
two that
If
have
the judge is
annual
the
elections.
outliner, you know, I'll take 1 compared to 8. You know, you're still saving $33,000 times 7, right?
We talked about that in the original.
Yeah.
When we originally did this, we had talked about we were going to work on hours in school, and the judge would be last.
And I did try to work on the school this year. What it requires, so the charter amendment is necessary for us because you need to move from 3-year terms to 4-year terms. There already is a general bill that was passed by the legislature that allows municipal bodies to move to the general election cycle and to extend your terms up to 2 years to facilitate that. What I asked our legislators to do, and also the Tennessee Municipal League to do, is to draft for us and propose a general bill that would allow those same things for municipal school boards. And when they drafted bills, that is not what came out. That's not what ended up being drafted. By mistake, I guess, I don't know, this is the way it was described to me by Representative Bricken. His staff people simply drafted what would have been a mandatory general bill to make municipal bodies move to the general election cycle. So again, I don't know where that miscommunication happened, but we didn't get a general bill that addressed school boards. And then we talked about, could there be an amendment, or could there be some other type of local bill that only affects Tullahoma that could move the school boards? And they think that there could be, but they could not get it done for this legislative session. So I say, when we go back next year, I think what it seems to me is that there are not enough municipal school systems across the state, since there's really only about a handful like us. Seems like it's not of enough interest to have a general bill. So I think our best bet is to go back with a local bill, figure out how we get just our school board, have their terms, they're already on 4-year terms, but let's get them off the cycle they're on so that they always fall in an even year. Does that make sense?
Okay.
May I-
Done. Go ahead. Your comments are on the motion to postpone.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
I wanted to make a comment about this in general, the motion to postpone, and why I'm planning to vote against the motion to postpone it. And the reason why is this, I'm going to be very honest. Feel free to say what you want to about it. But I don't like the idea of moving the elections, period, personally. I don't. That being said, what I hear in our community and from our citizens is that it's not financially responsible of us to not do it. I truly believe our community should be engaged year-round, all the time, and that's one thing that this does. But what I believe doesn't matter. To Ms. Allmacher's point, I do work for the citizens, not myself, not for the government. I hear from our citizens every day that this is something they've been asking for from well before I was even elected. And so I plan on supporting, voting against the motion to postpone because it's time to do it. They want this.
But we're still going to have an election.
Alderman Dunn, you made a motion to postpone this. I'm assuming the motion will postpone to our next meeting until you could gather more information. Is there any information that you haven't received tonight that you still would like to postpone? Is that your motion?
We have a motion and a second.
So my question, I guess, to Steve, or maybe Jennifer also, do you feel confident that we can someday, somehow move the judge election, or can this be fixed? That's my question. Do you think we can make it happen so that it's just on a 4-year, 8-year cycle in the even years? And you think?
Yes, I believe we can.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that your motion? Do you care to withdraw your motion?
I would like to withdraw. Thank you.
Motion's withdrawn.
Call to question on the original motion.
Call the question on the original motion on 1859, resolution to amend the pilot charter. Vote green for yes and red for no. Motion passes to amend the charter 6-1. It's been a long 6 years. Okay. Moving on. Our next ordinance under new business. Ordinance number 1554, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Tullahoma to set forth in the Tullahoma Municipal Code, ordinance number 1392, to rezone approximately 51.7 acres located at 3330 Ledford Mill Road, Coffee County, parcel 108, parcel 93.00, from agricultural district A to low-density residential district R1.
Move to approve?
Second.
Move to approve by Dunn, Alderman Blackwell, second.
Mr. Mayor, I'm in contract negotiations with the owner of this property, so I will be abstaining from this vote.
Thank you for that input. Any discussion on this? Call the question.
Who made the second? Don made the motion.
Dunn
And
and
Blackwell.
Blackwell.
Thank you.
Green. Call the question.
So, only 6 voting. Okay.
And that is approved 6-0. Under no other old business, so we'll move on to new business. At this point in time, we're going to be getting into the candidates that spoke earlier for the TAEDC board, and I will remind you that on the TAEDC board, the Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation board, it also includes the Tullahoma Health, Education, and Housing Facility Board, and the Tullahoma Industrial Board. So those boards are all coincident. So they'll be filling a remainder of an unexpired term, and this term will end on July 26, 2024. Do I hear a motion to approve a candidate?
I'd like to nominate Steve Mays.
We have a nomination of Steve May
I'd like to nominate JT Northcutt.
and JT Northcutt
I'd like to nominate Robin Judici.
and Robert Judici. Are there others? Okay, with that, we'll have a paper ballot, and the city recorder will pass out a ballot, and we'll vote individually.
Does this require a majority, or is it just the majority of the majority?
Please use the one with.
So most votes, that's it.
Most vote.
Assuming we can get them most votes, right?
You sure you don't want to do another
Right.
13, 14 rounds?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
Then I
Got
can-
another end of this.
Do I try to name it? Oh,
I was kind enough to do
thank
that.
you.
I'll bet you.
Whatever you want to do.
I'm new at this.
I won't look.
But you wrote on the one that had your name.
I did.
I'll be like Karnak.
I need water.
Ray's gonna kick me.
I'm not going to take another break. Thank you. I promise I won't.
So sweet. No, it's only 6:30.
Okay.
No.
Alderman Dunn voted for Steve May. Alderman Blackwell voted for Robin. Alderman Almacher voted for Steve May. Alderman McGee voted for Jerry Northcutt. Alderman Berry voted for Steve May. Mayor Noes voted for Steve May. And Mayor Pro Tem voted for JT Northcutt. So it has 4 for Steve May, 2 for JT Northcutt, and 1 for Robin.
Congratulations, Mr. May. And thank you to the other candidates. What a wonderful group of
Really.
candidates we have, and we thank you
Absolutely.
for your support. Thank you very much.
Wish there were more openings.
There will be other openings on other boards. Keep
Yes.
that in mind, so please, please keep your name in the citizen participation form. Thank you again.
Good group.
Okay, item number 2178 has been removed from the agenda for tonight. We'll get on to the ordinance of the city of the ordinance of the city of Tullahoma to adopt annual budget and the tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 21st and ending June 30th, 2021. Passed on the first of 3 readings. I'll get a motion on the floor.
Motion approved.
Motion from Mayor Pro Tem Blanks,
Second.
seconded by Dunn. Okay.
My brain is fried.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Yes. I was like, I was trying to remember if we do a motion or do this first, that's why.
I already have. Sorry, didn't.
Ms. Moody, will you be
Yeah.
presenting the budget, or will?
I would like to introduce it. So tonight I'm passing around some budget highlights. I just thought this would be helpful. Sometimes I use this talking to some of our civic organizations or things about what's in this year's budget. I saw it as being really prioritized around 3 areas. First and foremost, as we've talked about, we really weathered what could have been a terrible storm due to COVID. And in light of that, we've been able to restore a lot of the budget allocations that were reduced significantly from last year. In many areas, we're back at pre-pandemic levels. So some of the most significant ones, like our Parks and Recreation Department offering programming, having community centers, they were some of the most affected areas. And so last year, we had reduced part-time salary budgets and budgets for Splash Island operations. We didn't have community events, so we didn't have money in the budget for concerts and Independence Day celebration and things like that. So all of those type of activities have been restored in the budget. Also, most departments cut their travel and training budgets because everything went to virtual, online, or was canceled. So we've had to restore those budgets back, anticipating that we will be back in-person training and attending conferences. The second area, and probably where the largest allocations of any new money that we're anticipating went, is into retaining and recruiting top talent for our city. So especially in retaining the labor market, I'm sure you all are seeing every place that you go, there's help wanted signs. There's a lot of increases in what people are offering as minimum or starting salaries for jobs, and that's impacting our ability to recruit. We've gone from, and I'm sure other employers would say the same, we've gone from a small pool of applicants to sometimes no applicants for jobs. And so in addition to taking care of our existing employees by funding the step increase and providing a little bit larger cost of living adjustment than we have typically provided, we are looking at adjusting the minimum salaries at the bottom of our pay plan so that we can do a better job attracting those entry-level wages. We also, I think, hearing from you especially, we've put an emphasis on employee training. And so I think we have done an excellent job at a lot of the compliance training, annual training that has to be done. But now we're filling in the gaps with some management training. MTAS's Municipal Management Academy will be done here. It's typically an 8-week program. We're going to do it every other week and send all of our supervisors through that training. We're also going to have customer service training provided on site here for all of our staff that work directly with the public. And then, I'm kind of lumping a lot together, but across all of our departments, we have been making investments in technology, whether it's replacing outdated computers, buying security hardware, upgrading internet speeds, moving citywide to Office 365 as an operating system, making sure all of our city employees have email addresses, which has been really important to making some of our internal processes paperless. But all of these technology changes, they tend to come with annual maintenance fees and charges. And so some of our operations, comparing last year to this year, there's a change in the budget to support those annual maintenance fees. And then third, something that I know is very important to Mayor Noes in his term of office is we want to support job creation, new business development, land development, and economic recovery. And so I think it's important just to note that we will be completing an update of the comprehensive land use plan. It's going to carry over into next year. We'll continue supporting some of these new industry-backed curriculum initiatives of our Tullahoma City school system. Like we've mentioned a few times here, the AOPA Aviation STEM curriculum that's brand new, the Tullahoma Virtual Academy, and we'll keep working to develop the ACE, Advanced Coding Education Academy, with the school system. We also, this fall, like you'll remember, we're going to develop 5-year capital improvement plan that includes strategically prioritizing projects from now through 2026 or 2027. And Sue Wilson and will use our financial advisors and the municipal bond fund and all our resources as we prioritize those projects to bring you funding options for how we can accomplish those. I also want to see us continue to take steps necessary to get our certified local government status, which helps us in attracting some grants from the state, and then also look at how we can achieve accreditation for the National Main Street program. That was a goal of us completing that 2-year Tennessee Downtowns program. And, you know, we lost a lot of momentum, I would say, through this pandemic and not being able to meet in person and continue working together like we were previously. But we need to keep taking steps to get that accreditation. And then there's been interest in reestablishing our city's Historic Zoning Commission. They have been inactive for a number of years. And I think this is a good time in the context of all the other kind of zoning and long-range plan review and things like that, that we take a look at maybe reestablishing that commission. And then just last, shared with you, there was no proposed property tax increase or any other fee or charge increase proposed in the budget. There are no new budgeted positions proposed. And then in terms of operations, you know, just sharing the same thing that you're seeing out in the community. We made sure that we made some, anticipated some cost increases for a lot of different materials that we need in operations, fuel costs, and some of our contracts had price increases. So our contract related to solid waste and also our brush grinding, chipping services, we're expecting to increase. So that is the high-level overview of what's in this first reading of the budget, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I have a few comments. Number one, the capital improvement plan, I just want to again reiterate from the Soccer Association, they've continued to call me. I know they've called other people on the rest of this board. Phase 1 absolutely needs to include these bathrooms for Johnson Lane. Looking at the numbers of the kids who play soccer in this community, I think, you know, it's obviously a travesty that they don't already have them, but that is an absolute must. And then I just have some concerns. I am not interested in establishing the city's historic zoning commission because development of guidelines. We already have enough guidelines that are getting us in trouble right now. And I think that if you have the support of those businesses and those residents and those individuals who would be affected by the Historic Zoning Commission, obviously this increased a lot of maintenance costs on their parts. You need to talk to them first and make sure that they want this Historic Zoning Commission because they're the ones that are going to be paying for the requirements. Same thing with the Main Street Initiative. I don't know that any downtown businesses are on board with that. Those would be the ones affected. Those would be the ones the cost would be passed on to. They need to be the ones to make the decision. That's all I have.
We already had a historic zoning commission.
Inactive, yes.
Would that be something that would just be part of the current zoning board? It would kind of like how we run the beer board. Would it be the same people or would it be a separate group?
Give that to me.
What?
Would would it be?
Well,
I think it would be a separate group, but what I saw, it's been some time since I have looked at this issue. What I remember is that our Historic Zoning Commission established some of our historic districts, but they did not go as far as creating any type of standards. Or overlay, exactly. There was nothing for them to enforce. And so for some time they would get together and meet, but there were never any action items that would come before that commission. And so over time, the membership dwindled and it's just inactive. Mm-hmm. So the point of establishing it would be if we wanted to have some preservation of historic properties, some protections. You know, in a sense, it may seem like regulation because they could make decisions on things like whether a property could be demolished or not. They could review architectural changes to these buildings But currently, we do not have standards to enforce. So that would be the first step, is reestablishing who's on the board and then working towards establishing standards for them to enforce, or for them to have some business that would come before them.
With the establishment of it, would it allow for us to bring in more funding, grant funding, to help with these? I keep thinking about the art center and some of the issues that had to get funding to rebuild its to maintain its building, and think about South Jackson. By creating a historic zoning commission, would that allow us to apply for more grants to be able to do that? To refurbish those, or I'm trying to find the word, or
There's some monies
I'm not
available
sure.
from the state if we can get the certified local government, which isn't having
Certified
the
local
historical.
government status,
But
yes,
don't you have
does
to
attract
have
grants.
the?
The reason I'm hesitating is there is a difference between something being designated, like on the National Register, or being eligible for historic tax credits. Those really, I don't know that the Historic Commission in itself has anything to do with attracting that kind of grant dollar.
Okay.
So right now, I don't know the answer to that.
Don't you
I don't
have
know.
I kind of
to-
feel like
Don't you have to
Alderman Day is
have
correct, that
the
you have to have-
historic
that has to
zone
be a part
before
of
you
the
can have a
certified local-
CLG, right?
Certified local government.
That's part
I feel
of.
like.
Well, like I said, we have some historic districts already, and we have some.
Well, I thought there had to be like an overlay. Well, I was thinking there's some requirements there. There's some
Yeah, I
neat, it's
don't
probably a
know.
discussion for a later, but there's some neat models out there where people can opt in, right?
think
And
we
if
will.
you don't opt in, then you don't get to take advantage of,
the signs.
well, any monies that do become available because of grants or because of different things, and you're just kind of, I don't want it, so, but it's probably a discussion for later.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to address the Main Street program that you mentioned, Ms. Almacher. Mr. Brooks can explain that to you far better than I, but I am one of the downtown property owners that have been involved in the downtown program. That is a precursor to the Main Street program, and it's not one that imposes any kinds of regulation or any kinds of stipulation or any kind of boundaries on development downtown. Its purpose is to develop the downtown, to bring people into the downtown, not to restrict any kind of development at all. So I think maybe you just don't quite understand that. It's a
Well-
very positive thing, and the very best small cities in this state are already Main Street program.
Absolutely. I love
Tullahoma
Winchester's
is
Main
not
Street
one of them,
program.
and should be.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a decision that shouldn't be made by us. I feel like yourself, obviously, you should be in on that decision.
Right.
Christy Allmacher should be in on that decision. Those other downtown businesses, they need to be involved in that before we.
They are,
implement
and they
something
have
like
to
that.
be. There has to be a committee that's formed to do that. All this budget does is provide some funding for that. The Main Street program also enables us, as an organization, to get a lot of grant money to do the downtown development. So it's a very positive thing, not a restrictive thing at all. Has nothing to do with historic zoning. That's a totally different issue.
So that's two separate.
Totally different thing, yes.
May I ask a question about the 5-year capital? I know that, because I know you asked for our priorities, and pretty much everything I sent you was, Johnson Lane and, all the things are 5-year capital improvement plans. I think for clarification, and I think you said it in the last meeting, how really our budget right now, it's dealing with operations. What we're looking at with the 5-year capital plan is how we do those bigger improvements that are not going to be included in this budget. And I'm just wondering what the steps are when we're talking about the development of a 5-year capital improvement plan, and what your kind of feel is on that, and what.
Yeah, so the first step will be that I'll be working with staff to identify what those 5-year capital projects are, and we will. There's been a template that we've used in the past. I may revise it a little bit and get it back out to departments, but we basically create an estimated cost, a description, a narrative type description, and would deliver, have kind of an information sheet for each project that we're proposing. I think what this board hasn't had, and really I haven't had, is a good overview of what are all of the projects on the table, and then sit down and start to prioritize them. So we'll start with that. We'll start with staff filling out these kind of narrative, and they'll just be back of the napkin cost estimates. We're not going out and bidding anything or getting quotes on any of these. We're just trying to give you a ballpark number so we can start the planning process. And then Sue Wilson and I will sit down with you and have a workshop or a study session where we'll kind of present the project so you can ask questions about them and start to put them into 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. As you get further out, obviously you have less certainty about what things are going to cost in the future. So always keep that in mind. Also, getting an idea, getting our arms around what is year one, that conversation, to be practical, has to happen with our financial advisor and with some understanding of where is the funding going to come from. Is it going to come from the same sources of revenue that support our operating budget, property tax, sales tax, or is it going to come from some type of borrowing, a bond issuance, a capital outlay note? So those are the kind of discussions we'll have in the workshop, if that helps.
And will you guys utilize the information from the comprehensive plan that we're doing to also help drive what the 5-year plan will look like?
They certainly can inform each other, I would say, especially in transportation.
Yeah. The Cedar
It
Lane.
could help us prioritize transportation projects, for sure.
Absolutely.
I was asking these questions because I just wanted to give clarification. I know that there's a lot of people in, this is actually a lot for some of you guys to be watching our meeting right now, but so that they understood kind of why things don't happen every year, why, we have, been talking about things and why it has to be like this giant financial plan to get to it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table with a second to approve ordinance number 1556.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to amend that motion.
We have amendment, and I will advise anyone who is making an amendment to change the budget that's currently a balanced budget. If you make a motion to increase an item someplace, then I'd like to have an accompanying motion to accompany that motion. Where will that money come from? From what source?
I would like to amend the sports council, and I'm doing it now versus when we go through appropriations, so that Sue and Miss Jennifer have time to look at it now, pre-budget, to find out where to pull some money from. I would actually I think it should come from tourism dollars. I'd like to increase it from 13.8 to the requested 25. And I believe that additional 11,002 should come from our tourism hotel motel tax. And if we get a second, I'll explain why.
Doesn't that funding come from the hotel tax already?
No.
Was it come, it's not?
I'll second for the discussion.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, we got a motion to amend the sports council from 13.8 to 25. And that would come from tourism.
So the reasoning behind this is the sports council does something that the majority of the other nonprofits do, is the money that goes to the sports council goes directly back into projects that the city is doing in parks and recreation. Whether it's batting cages that the sports council was able to do for $20,000 that would have cost the city to do $40,000. The dollar goes longer. This past weekend, the Sports Council hosted a tournament with 31 teams. According to Play Tennessee, in this area, on average, each team brings 24 people with it, not counting the coaches or the roster. Each person spends, each group of family there, on average of $100. So this weekend alone, there was around 1,000, 1,200 people who came into Tullahoma. The concession stand itself made a couple, $2,000, $3,000. We know that they went out and ate because the trash that was picked up was from all of our local restaurants. You're a visitor if you come to Tullahoma and don't spend a dime. You're a tourist if you come to Tullahoma and you spend $1. So this weekend, several thousand dollars were spent at our local businesses, at our cigar shops, at our restaurants, at our retails, and that money comes back into Tullahoma. In June, there'll be a tournament with 50 teams sponsored by the Sports Council. One of the biggest barriers to hosting tournaments here, whether it's soccer or soccer's probably lack of bathrooms right now, but is the cost of fields. And in talking with Manchester and ways that they have done this, is they've set up grant programs through where it helps offset. It's $250 per, correct me if I'm wrong, $250 per field, $200 per field per day with a $500 deposit. If you do 8 fields, that's a lot of money coming out to host a tournament here in Tullahoma. So what this fund does is it would come in and set up a grant program where you can come in and say, okay, we want to host a 2-day tournament. And then you're able to say, okay, based off of a scoring system, we're going to look at smart scheduling. Is it going to be a 2-day tournament? Because a 2-day tournament's going to make more money for the city of Tullahoma. That's the goal, is to drive revenue and tourism here into Tullahoma. If it's going to do that, then you get more points. If the number of teams that are going to be here, you're going to get more points. Are you going to fill the hotels? And so you fill out that application, and based off the application, you get dollars allocated from the Sports Council. Could have that available and could work with the city. The money that the Sports Council is getting from these tournaments, I think a lot of people think of the Sports Council as it does an awards banquet, right? And that's really just one thing that the Sports Council does. This past tournament helped the ROTC. They helped out with the quarterback club. They helped out with a couple other organizations. The money is coming back into wanting to help finish out those fields there in Johnson Lane, looking for ways to reach out to soccer group and say, hey, if you help volunteer in these concession stands, we'll donate money back in to help build restrooms. We'll give this, whether that's through the city but the goal is to drive revenue here into the city of Tullahoma through tax dollars. We can do that through tournaments, we can do that through other programs, and then turn around and invest that money back into projects that we don't have money for, or we don't need to do, or we need help with.
Okay.
I would be a proponent of increasing it to 20, maybe not 25, and also it coming back from tourism, since it does tend to drive tourism.
Are you proposing an amendment?
Yes,
to
I'm
this
proposing
motion?
an amendment to 20.
You're opposing an amendment to the amendment.
Are we allowed to do that? Is that
Can you do that? I don't think you can do that.
We've
Can
already
you-
got one amendment to the main motion.
Okay, I'd like to ask Daniel to amend his motion.
Well, can
If they want to withdraw, if they want to withdraw the first amendment and the second withdrawn, then we're going to have to vote on the amendment first.
We'll vote on the First Amendment.
May I ask some questions still on that First Amendment?
Yeah.
So, I've been trying to talk to Mr. Bratcher about this today. Here's a couple of thoughts I had, and why, when he reached out to me about increasing the amount. My first question, which you can answer, where does the concession money go?
It goes back to the Sports Council, and then it's being used for projects like the batting cage and the fields down at Johnson Lane and other city parks.
So I understand, what I understand that I think is a good thing that's happening is that, which is kind of the same thing I did with Jefferson Street Park. By going through the Sports Council, one, people got tax write-offs. Two, what we're able to do is not have to go through some of the regulatory things that we would have to otherwise. What my concern is, and the reason why I am less likely to want to fund the full 25, is I want to see some fundraising on their part. And that's one of the things, when I was looking through their application, the fundraising I saw was the fundraising that came in from the Jefferson Street Park fundraising that I did. I think most nonprofits do their own fundraising as well, and I don't want to fund them fully without seeing that be offset a bit more. I would like to see more, and I'm going to get wonky here, but one event is not, as a nonprofit, it doesn't make for a feasible nonprofit. They need to have more diverse fundraising options and revenue streams, right? Just like we talked about, we all need revenue streams. They do as well. So for me, I don't want to fund that to this point without seeing them going out there and getting the money a bit more too.
There was a tournament this weekend hosted by the Sports Council that raised $2,000. So that may not be a lot of money, but that is a lot of money. But that's still a fundraising event, you can say, because they were out there in the 85, 90-degree heats, slinging burgers and hot dogs and.
But it doesn't show up like that's why. So when that application came through to us, it doesn't show that in terms of it doesn't show that type of thing. Like it doesn't show. It showed literally that the only fundraising was the Jefferson Street Park one. So when I'm reading through this, I don't have that information.
Right.
So that's what I've been trying to get is to understand more. Because when I reached out to him, I said, I understand why do you want that extra money? What is it going toward? And it didn't say. I want to hear more of a plan, just like we've been talking about. And so that's kind of my thing where I'm hesitant to fund at $25,000. I'm not. Yeah, I'm going to stop now.
I think my question is, if this is going to fund fields, then why aren't we paying the money directly to our Parks and Recreation Department to fund fields, which I would consider, but I have a very difficult time looking at taxpayer dollars going to an unregulated, more or less, private industry or private nonprofit, to utilize that money.
That's what we're doing with every single nonprofit on here, though. And I am 100% okay with saying we're not going to fund any of those nonprofits. If that's the argument we're going to make, I'm okay doing that because that's where I would like to go. But the compromise.
I think the position that Alderman Berry is presenting is that it seems that the Sports Council has an economic development component that some of the other nonprofits just don't bring to the city. And as you've mentioned, some of the numbers, quite frankly. So we do have an amendment to the budget to this effect, and before we call the question, I want to get every input that I can. And Ms. Wilson, you have some comments to make.
Yes, I just like to speak to the tourism aspect. The motel tax right now, we have it budgeted in there as increasing 8%. I would like to see it do better, but that was one of the areas that did not do well, obviously, during COVID. But we're starting to see an increase and it's starting to rebound. So we have budgeted that at 8%, which will help the agencies that are directly already, Blank South Jackson, tied to the motel tax resolution. Now that's another whole aspect. Some of the agencies are associated directly with tourism and do benefit directly from increases. Other ones in there, we did not increase. They are still at pre-COVID levels, and that's up to the board whether you would like them changed back to what they were before, left where they were from where they reduced last year. But there is no more. The tourism money is already in this budget. There is no other tourism money. So what we have to do is look at reserves, use of reserves, or changing something, but the motel tax is already assimilated into this budget, supporting other agencies, supporting city operations, supporting city tourism aspects that we're doing.
I would amend my motion.
Ms. Moody, you had your hand up? Did you
I just wanted to make sure that Ms. Wilson.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
And I look at the different changes percentage-wise, and that's the biggest change on the list. I would support increasing it some, but I don't know if I would support it to 234%. If you look at some of the others that have been decreased, especially on the tourism sector, because of COVID and what's been going on, they'll probably get back to their levels. So, to have one that goes up that big a percentage, You know, that's a little bit ticky for me. I mean, I would support an increase, but I don't know if I would go that much.
I would change my motion.
Mayor, Alderman Berry, you wanted to make
I would change my motion. I would
change your amendment.
change my amendment to defund the Tennessee Backroads Heritage, which is that pamphlet, correct?
Yes.
That I'm not really sure what it does. And talking with some of the other tourism agencies. And
Point of order. Did you get a second to your amendment?
Yes. Yes.
Then, in order to, you have to actually withdraw your amendment if the second.
I withdraw my amendment.
And then make a new motion.
Okay, make a new motion.
All right. I believe that is what Alderman Berry was doing, was withdrawing his amendment.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion before he
You
does.
used the word amend, so.
All right, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to add $5,000 to the Sports Council and detract from the Chamber of Commerce.
Boy.
Since they have the biggest budget as is.
Add 5K to sports and take 5 from.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. They are tied, the chamber is tied to a resolution on the motel tax. You would have to do a resolution to change their funding percentage if you wanted. You could do it, but that's why you would have to do it that way.
Do you all have this in front of you where it has a breakdown of what's a community service versus what's a tourism organization?
Page 134.
So the tourism organizations, they are funded by a resolution that establishes a percent of our actual revenues. So that's my only concern, Alderman is trying to take a finite dollar amount when they're allocated by percent.
Okay, I'll amend. So my motion is to add $5,000 to the Sports Council and have that funded by hopefully any excess from hotel motel tax that we might be incurring.
can I ask?
Is that okay?
I'm trying here.
Have a second on the motion, so.
I'll second just so we can say, but I would ask that I would say let's withdraw that and I'll bring it up next meeting and get you the information that you requested.
And I also would like to get Mr. Kraft's buy-in. He's like, what? on how he works with the Sports Council, what things, because some of these things that Alderman Dunn just said, why are we putting them out, outsourcing it in some ways to someone else when would Mr. Kraft rather have that in his budget? Oh, yes. Sorry.
Leadership.
Most every capital improvement would definitely have to be a bid item. It would be over $7,500. It does, if it's under the Sports Council, it would not be tied to our purchasing requirements. Restrooms at Johnson Lane would easily be $1 million. I don't think they will ever be able to fund that with tournaments. But, capital improvements of that magnitude are very expensive. Batting cages are probably attainable. They've done one set. I think there's a second set on the way. They can build the fourth field at Johnson Lane, the concrete wall, the fence. They can do the field amendments. Of course, bleachers, ADA, irrigation. I mean, this will add up very quickly.
Is it helpful to have that stuff lay with them versus with you?
As long as we all follow a plan and don't just do it kind of
Piecemeal.
out of order
Yeah.
and piecemealed, if we can work off of a plan. We do have a plan for that fourth field. It would match the other 3 fields out there. That's my only concern is, if we build here, we build here. It all has to tie and go together.
And do y'all, do you go to their meet? I know you're on their board, but this is where, and I think Alderman Allmacher is the one who said this the last time that, the concern is, everyone being on the same page.
I
Right.
have been to their meetings, and I do communicate with Jim Bratcher quite often. I will probably start attending his meetings.
Well, until recently, Kurt was a board member.
I think initially he was. I don't know if around the
Not
time
since I've
you-
been.
That's what I thought. I thought maybe around the time they formally became a nonprofit, then he was no longer a board member.
I need to make a correction in a statement I made. I was talking about the increase, and it was the Hands-On Science Center that had the biggest increase.
Yeah.
And the Sports Council was 81.2, so, we might tweak one to fund the other.
You said the bathrooms would cost around $1 million?
Yes, ma'am. The last restrooms I priced were the ones at Splash Island, which are roughly the same price. It was $900,000 in 2015. The pad, the electrical work is there. The parking lot is there at Johnson Lane. The it will most likely be concrete block building. It would have a pavilion attached. It would have a storage area. It would easily be at least $500,000, but I would say it would probably go to $1 million.
And
It's not just bathrooms.
It's not just bathrooms. I think there's some confusion out there within the community.
Okay, 'cause that's what I was thinking.
That it's not just bathrooms, that instead of piecemealing it and doing bathrooms and then adding on again and adding on again, the goal would be in this capital fundraising, is to be able to build what the actual need is rather than piecemealing it together. Is that correct?
It is a restroom and a pavilion in one structure, but keep in mind that Splash Island, it was just a men's room and a women's room. Of course, it's multiple to serve 500 people. There's about, that was what you'd serve or more at a soccer game with 4 fields. But just the restrooms alone in 2015 was $900,000. This would be a restroom facility and a pavilion, all in one structure. It would not just be the restroom. That's what the plan calls for. We wouldn't necessarily have to build that, but for a concession stand, the pavilion would be where people would get in the shade and eat. It's what most parks have. As you know, there are no real shade structures there at Johnson Lane. We've planted some trees. I'll be glad to show you the plans for the building.
I think we could amend this project and phase it out, like I think that's the plan. And the restroom components themselves, without the rest of the pavilion, you could add that on later. And I think we need to do a better job of getting this thing out to the public and get it bid on, because I know some contractors right now that would chomp at the bit for building them restrooms for $500,000.
We gotta find the funding.
This is where I come from. So, I am thinking we're on the high range on that. When we bid that out, but I think piecing it, like you said, making sure that we're piecing it in a concurrent plan. However, the Sports Council, that they're not doing capital projects. We're talking about
Fixing the field, doing
fixing
the
the
bleachers,
fields,
doing the
making sure,
batting.
helping with the bleachers, making sure that we have what we need for tournaments, making sure that things are in place. So we need to separate the capital projects with Parks and Rec from what Sports Council is doing. And I think that, to your point, I will withdraw my motion and we can rediscuss it in 2 weeks when you come back with more information.
We don't have a motion to just move it to 2 weeks from now. Do we have?
I did. All right.
I withdraw. I'll bring it back up.
Yeah, we can just withdraw the motion and bring it back up later.
Next meeting. Yep.
So Palmacher is withdrawing the motion for 5K to Sports Council funded by excess.
Yes.
You're withdrawing the motion to amend motions on the floor to approve the budget without any changes.
Yes, sir. Yes, exactly.
We still have a motion on the floor to approve the budget without any changes.
Correct.
On first reading.
On first reading. Approve the budget without any changes on first reading. By the way, before we vote, let me tell you that what we've been talking about for the last, well, you know how long we've been talking about it. We've been talking about $25,000, the Sports Council. That's less than 1/10 of 1% of our city budget. And surely, we've got bigger things to talk about. Time to vote.
Preach.
Motion is approved, 6-0, 6-1, excuse me. There's no other new business, meetings adjourned.